Uh, oh, yay. It's so great to be back with the Wise Women Roundtable. It's been a little while. We've all had a lot going on. I know I've had a lot going on. And in fact, I was just sharing because we're talking about how we are reconnecting with ancestral wisdom. So we are the Wise Women Roundtable. So, how are we reconnecting with ancestral wisdom at this time to help us move forward in a new way? And there's so many things going on astrologically that really support this. But yesterday I woke up with this question. Take looking at the all the technologies that are outside of us and also being aware of the technologies that are inside of us and our DNA. I just heard Greg Braden talking about it again. I've heard him talk about it many times and saying how we have a technology inside of us that it far outstrips anything we have ever created outside of us. So, and how do we reconnect with that? We have forgotten how to connect with that and to really be able to utilize that. So, this is our opportunity now. So, anyway, I'm thinking about this as I wake up, go for my walk yesterday morning, and I saw a huge, it was over a foot long Gila monster crossing my path right in front of me. I was like, I got this beautiful picture of it. I was like, oh, thank you. Because whenever I ask questions from the ancestors and the Gila monsters show up, I feel like that they're giving me an answer. And in the Arizona desert where I live, Gila monsters are up to 98% of the time underground. They are not easy to see. They are rare to see, but I have seen dozens of them. I've lived here 48 years. So I've seen a lot of them over the years and always usually when I'm asking questions about how am I doing, am I connecting with my ancestral lineage? Am I helping clear any ancestral trauma? Things like that. Those kinds of questions I have asked. And then the Gila monsters show up and I'm like, okay, good. I guess I'm on the right track. So just to hopefully that inspires you. I was lit up. I have to say, I was totally lit up by that experience. And we have so much going on. So hopefully, when you hear this, you'll be inspired to go out and look at the night sky and see how Venus is catching up to Jupiter. It's going to on June 9th is going to be exactly conjunct. Venus and Jupiter are going to be exactly conjunct on the edge of the sacred hoop. I've done some other videos on this. I'll put in the show notes so you can get a connection to if you want to go find out more about what's going on there because I explain it all there. And then on June 29th, right after the June solstice, and I'm going to share more about that in a moment, Jupiter is going into Leo. And Leo is the archetypal energy most connected to self-love, self-approval, self-acceptance, self-respect, self-confidence, the self things like healthy self-love, healthy and loving ourselves as much as, wow, we could maybe imagine, and I love that Elizabeth said this to me earlier, that the way that we are loved by creation, by the divine, by God, by whatever, all that is God, goddess, great spirit, creator, whatever you want to call it, source energy. I don't know, but if we're loving ourselves, even when we're going through difficult things, even when we have questions about I really made a big mistake there, but can you love yourself anyway? Can you still be in that place of self-love? And I have Jupiter and Leo, so I'm going into my Jupiter return, and this is a question I've been with for a long time because there are times where I've had experiences where I was just like, I think God hates me. Like, why is this happening to me? I'm trying to be a good person and these horrible, awful things are happening to me. And then later I'd look back and realize, oh, wait, I wasn't being punished. I was being redirected. Oh, okay, now I get it. And so then we can begin so when we have those kinds of experiences, instead of feeling like we need to hate ourselves or we've done something wrong and we should be punished for it, or that is part of the old paradigm construct. It's an old paradigm construct that if you sin, you might go to hell. If you sin, you will go to hell. Oh, and so those judgments that have been in place for such a long time. I feel like this is a time with Jupiter and Leo to really look at how are we loving ourselves even when we make mistakes, even when we are maybe not feeling like we are on the right track as in the best way that we possibly could be. And that's okay because then we can make adjustments. We can look at how do we still love who we are and know that by loving ourselves and loving those around us, that love is what's going to change everything in the world. Love is the most powerful force possible. So when we're loving ourselves, then we're loving life, we're loving everything around us. We're putting that high vibrational energy into the world, and that is what really can change everything. So I think Jupiter and Leo starting on June 29th is going to really help with that. And it goes until July 27th of 2027. So we have a little over a year of Jupiter and Leo. And I'm very excited about that, of course. So I guess I came to learn how to do self-love, and I had a lot of things in the way of that before I even was born. So uh, being an unwanted child. So, it's like, challenging, very challenging situations and then how do you still love who you are? It's like, this is the opportunity. Now, the other piece I want to talk about is we're coming up on the Sagittarius full moon on May 31st. It's an out of bounds full moon, meaning it's outside the boundaries of our ordinary reality. The sun can rise and set on certain places on the horizon at solstices. It's always east and west at equinoxes, but furthest north and furthest south at the solstices. And then the moon can go past that. So it's outside of our everyday reality. And so that's going to kind of lead us into, and it's also taking place near the galactic center. The moon crosses right over galactic center shortly after the exact full moon. And it's with the heart star of the Scorpion, love, heart, back to the heart energy. How are we loving who we are? And uh, and it's the key to the Golden Gate, and also it's where we're have entered the galactic current sheet, and there's all this energy that's coming. I've done a video about that too, so I'll put that in the show notes. So, but it's just like this amazing, amazing full moon, and the fullest rise of the moon will be on the night of May 30th. The full moon is actually on May 31st, but the fullest rise of the moon. So if you get a chance to see it, it'll be spectacular and very close to or approaching the star Antares, the heart of the Scorpion. And that is one of the four royal stars of the ancient people, one of the magical stars. So having a full moon, the full moon is exact within 13 minutes of being precisely with this star. And in some places, southern hemisphere will be able to see an occultation of the moon over Antares. So the heart energy, how do we come from the place of love and compassion and caring for ourselves and for each other and for the planet? Also, how do we offer gratitude for ourselves and for all that we experience in this life? So I think one of the ways to get connected into the heart energy is through the practice of gratitude, and doing a daily gratitude practice can be life changing, be very life changing, and many ancient cultures did that as part of their everyday life, and then we kind of forgot. So anyway, being and that, and then the let's see. Oh, so we've got that happening at the near the center of the galaxy, this full moon, and then the June solstice, June 21st, is when it's exact. Is going to be happening um, at the galactic edge, at the edge of the galaxy. So and it's at the center of the sacred hoop of stars, which I've been totally geeking out about, and I will put some links in there about some of the amazing things happening but the center point or the heart of the sacred hoop of stars is where the June solstice sun has been rising since 1926, and it will be rising there until 2070. And so we're living in this rare time of the sun at the June solstice at the heart or the center of the sacred hoop of stars. And many native cultures had looked at this area of the sky, and when there were planets within the sacred hoop, this was a very important time for them. And Uranus just entered the sacred hoop. It'll be there until 2039. Uranus just entered back into Gemini. And so we have this amazing journey of Uranus, who can only pass through this area of the sky every 84 years. And then in 2030, Saturn's going to catch up and enter the sacred hoop, and then it'll catch up to Uranus. I forget the exact date. I think it's 2032, but they're going to meet right at the center of the sacred hoop of stars. I did a video on that, so if you want to know more, you can check that out. And uh, what basically is feels like to me, Black Elk and said that it would take 7 generations from the massacre at Wounded Knee, which happened in 1890, for the sacred hoop to be mended in all nations and all people to come back together, and to live in harmony and peace. That would be, if you take 20 years for each generation, that would be 2030. And that's when Saturn's entering the sacred hoop. So I'm just like, okay, I think a lot of these prophecies are getting ready to come true. And I know Elizabeth has so much more she's going to share about this, and some of the things that are already happening that are so amazing. So I'm going to leave it here and pass it on to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah. And I love the this is why we do these talks. Because everything ends up aligning, and what you all miss is the amazing discussions we have before and after we do these talks that lead to us even having the topic that we end up sharing, and why we get on so excited, because we all, us ladies, we bring to the table all the things we're experiencing, and share, and then we see all this alignment. And so that's when we push record, is that when you get the juiciness of the alignment. But before that is us oftentimes spending a good chunk of time discussing what we're perceiving in our realities. So this morning, everything's in perfect divine order, and timing is part of it. So this morning, right before the talk, I was led to look at the Pope Leo the 14th's latest encyclical. So I was raised Eastern Rite Catholic, and we were the keepers of the mysticism of the Catholic Church. And although I'm not practicing, I still utilize so much of the sacred structure of that religion, just like so many religions have so much sacred structure that's worth connecting to always. And an encyclical is special because it's basically a divine decree. And so the Pope in the Catholic tradition is the placeholder for Jesus, and can be traced directly back to Peter, the disciple of Christ. And Christ saying, "It's you, you're going to be the one who holds my spot." And then from there, it's traced back to 112 popes. Um, Actually, it's more than that, but there was the Saint Malachi, who was a priest who saw prophetic visions, and he was the one who basically explained that there was going to be a certain set of popes in certain positions to get certain things done to end what they call the reign of Satan, and that the reign of Satan is 100 years long, and it started in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. So the the prophecies actually that I'm speaking about not only come from that particular saint, which you can go look at, but it also comes from the prophecies of the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima. And Our Lady of Fatima, the apparitions were so well established, not just by the children who actually saw her, but by the many tens of thousands of people who saw her themselves. And the it was interesting because the government tried to stop the people from going to this apparition, and it was pouring rain. You should go look this up. It was actually kept from Western media, so Eastern media had it all over on their newspapers. But this is during times when we had photographs when we had video. And the apparitions of Our Lady, the only reason I know this stuff is because my mother is an expert and literally speaks to people at the Vatican and stuff about this stuff. And she's been going around the world and Ukraine, Russia, all over the place trying to talk to people because all the prophecies that came out of Fatima so far have come true. And one of them is that the what she calls the heirs of Russia at the time, the errors of Russia, and this was communism. And so she was speaking directly against communism, and she said that you'll know it's the end when communism is basically just everywhere. And currently, that's exactly what we're dealing with. When people say to you that you're going to be happy and own nothing, that's called communism. So, and communism's inhumane. It's actually not human. Human beings don't function that way. It is a top-down construct that is not real. It's not natural. And from it has arisen this false AI. There's two different kinds of AI. And it's very important that you know the difference between these two things. Because there's one that wants to usurp your consciousness, and then there's the other, which is helpful, which is a tool. It's a tool meant to build the new kingdoms of light. And then there's the false AI, the what we might call the galactic AI or the alien AI. And the alien AI, its premise is specifically that the universe is hopelessly flawed, that it's not already perfect, and that it actually has a precedent to attempt to create a false copy of the universe, and that's what the virtual world is. So when I was in college 20 years ago, I spent a lot of time fighting with people about this particular thing. And I argued with them that the virtual world is basically hell and that you lose everything. You lose everything if you believe that that is more real than the real dimensions and the physical that you have access to. It takes away your humanity. And the AI that's helpful doesn't take away your humanity. It depends on it. So there's a big difference between these two, and I want everybody to pay very close attention to it because you're going to have to recognize the difference. So this encyclical that this Pope just wrote is a divine decree, which is basically in the Catholic Church about as close as Jesus giving you orders that you can get. And so this divine decree from Pope Leo the 14th, he actually, for the first time, and no one knows exactly how long, he actually went public and did a whole speech about his encyclical, and no popes have done that. Usually encyclicals are published and then just left to the people. But this time he found it so important that not only did he do a public speech about it, he brought one of the head creators of Anthropic, which is one of these dark AIs. He brought one of them into the circle, and this guy gave a speech right after the Pope and ended up just revealing himself. And that's what the Pope intended. But this encyclical is called The Magnificent Human. And when I saw that, it made me cry because it's so important that you understand your humanity now more than ever. And this Pope knows that. He can see it. So he described in his encyclical that this false AI is slavery. He literally declared war against it. And he just mobilized 1.2 billion people to go fight against AI. The dark AI, the one that wants to control you, the one that he calls as dangerous or more dangerous than a nuclear weapon. That's what he says. More so, He urges you to recognize the value that you have inside of you because of your internal life. He is pointing to exactly what Caylin's talking about. The power of your embodiment and your DNA being one of the greatest technological creations ever made. He's calling it. And and the best part, in my opinion, is that he urges you to consecrate yourself to Mother Mary, which in Catholicism, the prophecies point to, and Fatima points to what Mother Mary called the triumph of my Immaculate Heart. And she said that the reason is because it's through her, it's through the Divine Mother that we end up ending this war. It's through her and her backing us up. And that means the earth, it means the Divine Mother in general. And the Pope asks us all to consecrate ourselves to the Divine Mother. Why? Because if you have something to take, it could be your identity, it could be your the goods and physical objects in your life. It could be your friendships, it could be your marriage or your family or your children. If you have something to take, traditionally that's always used against us to get people to do what the tyrants want us to do. If you don't own it, if it's all consecrated to the mother, however that divine mother shows up in your life, it could be the earth, it could be Mother Mary, it could be the divine mother in general. If you're giving it all to her, then there's nothing to take. Then you end up being protected. I actually attribute this to being why I'm alive. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that. My mother consecrated me to the Divine Mother early on, but I have done it myself and my own family and my own stuff and my business and everything. Everything. I don't own my identity. I handed it off to the divine long ago. And I attribute that to being why I'm alive because there was nothing to take. There's nothing to take. All that's left in me is then my trauma. And even then, the entities show up and they're like, we want your despair. And I'm like, I'm handing it to God and then you can go get it from there. You can hand all your trauma off and pay it forward. Trauma is like money. You can spend it. You give it to Divine Mother or Divine Father and you say, take this from me and pay it forward to create miracles. It's that easy. And the Catholics teach that. They teach you to offer up your suffering and your trauma to pay it forward, and that it literally frees souls from purgatory and hell. And purgatory and hell are things we experience while we're in a body. So most of us have experienced it. So it's not like the road to hell is after you die, it's while you're alive. You get to decide. And we're in a bottleneck now. So this is a bottleneck of consciousness. And myself and these other ladies here so bravely have said, I'm super done being censored. Done. I'm done. And I'm here to speak truth. That's what we're going to use technology for, is to magnify truth and power. But what can you do? Well, just recognize that your body, all of the physical reality around you, always goes back home to the mother. So one time I was really worried about plastic, for example. I was like, plastic is bad. And so I had this chat with Earth. And I said, Mother Earth, what do you think about plastic? And she thought it was so funny. She's laughing at me and she's like, child, don't you think that I know that you're just simply borrowing all that I am to create all kinds of interesting novel things? And that's what God intended, to create novel reality, to create new interesting things. But don't you realize what happens to all of it? And she kept showing me how she would take all of the plastic and dissolve it and bring it back home to herself. That she takes our bodies and dissolves them and brings them back home to herself. And then she brought me over to the crown jewels of England. And she said, "Can't you see how I let you all borrow all that I am to even make these jewels that are only ever so temporary?" And she said, "Don't worry, it all goes back to me." So if you're not sure and you're like, this religion thing's a little weird, don't worry about that. What I'm trying to say to you is that now all of us who are in the light, who have the structures of light, we're pulling those threads out of the religions and we're bringing them with us, that we're backed up by each other. That there's going to be good people in all these different religions who come out of the woodwork. And that the one thing that Mother Mary has always said in all of her prophecies and all of her apparitions is that they would all unite banners under her, that the triumph of the mother is what saves humanity. Over and over and over again, that has become more and more true and more clear that it's the mothers who lead the way in enlightenment now. It's the mothers who are leading the way into the future. It's the mothers who've always led the way into new species and new iterations of humanity. And now it's all coming to fruition. And I'm talking about literally all the religions across the entire globe uniting under the banner of the Divine Mother. That's the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of the Mother. And that's what will end the wars. And it's going to be the moms. And I knew that a long, long time ago when I was dealing with the weapons industry, because I did a lot of stuff with the US military in the background. And when I was digging into the weapons industry and started getting tracked by Dark Order, I was watching the women. It was the women who were speaking out because their babies were the ones coming out deformed from the weapons that were being used. And they were the ones who were standing up against all of it. And I knew at that point, like, it's going to be the moms all the way. It's the moms. So here we are. And this is good news for the divine masculine too, because our men, they know that they're here to help rebuild the temple. The temple that's rebuilt in the prophecies is not the Temple of Solomon. It's not the Temple of Solomon. It is a different temple. It's actually the temple of the Divine Mother. So there's a lot of people who think that the Dark Order will end up finally getting their temple rebuilt, but it won't happen. It can't, because that's not the temple that will be built. And it's not the temple that has to be finished. The women already started it. Now we have to have the divine masculine show up in humility and love for the mother, and then they will help finish it by backing us up as we open up into the recreation of our world. So the job is to build the new. So don't put your attention anymore on the falling apart of stuff in the darkness and Skynet or whatever. Don't put your attention there. Instead, we're here to rebuild what was. And this is where I can hand it off to Sara, because she actually went and experienced what was and has brought through a template of the ancient divinity of the mother. And there's so much to it. And I think over this next year, the rest of our roundtables will probably be around how do we build within this new cycle, and how are we going to use new tools like the good AI to help us move forward. So, I use AI, but I use it wisely. I know that I am the commander of the AI, and the AI is meant to serve me as a tool. And it's not perfect. And that's the point. Because no tool is ever perfect. No tool can do the whole job except one tool. The one tool that you have can do the whole job, and that's your body. That's DNA. So don't forget this. This is the greatest creation in the universe is our DNA, and it's all on us, and no pressure. It's all on us to figure this out and to ground it and to anchor it and to bring it forth. And many of you will do what we are being called to do too, which is to create new schools, new ways, new understanding, to train people in ways that were hidden from them, to give them a chance to move forward. And it's right on top of us. And ironically, Cayelin was talking about 2032. She literally brought up that date. That date is considered at this point for most of us scientists the date that the pole shift's going to happen. So that's how fast this is happening. And it's now, it's a bottleneck. It's you choose. You're choosing right now. There's only two roads now. You either hate yourself or you love yourself, folks. That's it. And if you love yourself, then we can build heaven on earth. If you're willing to love yourself as the earth loves you, stop believing people when they say the earth hates you. They're lying. They're lying. Go ask her yourself. We would be gone long ago if that was true. The earth is quite good at doing an etch-a-sketch reset. But if you hate yourself, then you're building hell. You're building hell on earth. And that's where we're at. And even the Pope, I mean, come on, now even the Pope is telling you the same and saying, love yourself. Love yourself as the Divine Mother loves you. Love yourself as the divine loves you, as the earth loves you. And he's saying, he said it. We can't save our planet unless we're willing to honor the magnificent human. That's what he named his encyclical. So take this seriously. We're on top of this now. It is happening now. We've been leading you for some years now. We were just laughing about how it's been some like 5 years. But now we've been leading you all the way up to this moment. And we'll keep being here to talk about it with you and what we see. But this is it. This is the moment we've been trying to get you to. We're not done, and there's many, many more iterations of change to happen. So with that, I get to hand it off to Sara, and she can help us understand a little bit more of this too. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, and thank you, Cayelin, as well. And we noticed right at the beginning that we were all in matching colours, and that's before we even began speaking. So a little bit, again, of our connection, even though we don't really chat in between time, just briefly sometimes, but very, very connected. So, to be honest, what I'm going to attempt to do is a bit of a transmission. I haven't got a big plan here, except, and I didn't know that we were going to talk as we were today. What was coming up for me to speak about is how we can remain fully intact as humans, to bring all of our wisdom with us as we enter this world of emerging intelligence. And so I had no idea we were going to have these conversations. So the backdrop of this is that I didn't go anywhere for years, and I mean, the pre-COVID times, and it wasn't because of that. But I literally haven't travelled, and I love travelling for quite a few years. This month I spent half of the month so far away from home. I spent a week in the UK with some ladies from the US, as it happens, dear sisters of mine, and we visited many sacred sites. I'm going to be talking about one of them today, and she's very connected to the mother. Well, she is the mother. And then I came back here to France for a week, and then I was off to Malta, and I visited two sacred sites, very, very ancient sacred sites in Malta. So I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I've got a lot of integration to do, shall we say. So while I was there, I made essences in both of the spaces, and I'm actually holding one of them now. So when I went to the UK, we did many, many things together. But
we were in Glastonbury. We held ceremony and ritual in the Mary Magdalene Temple, which is in Glastonbury, which was an amazing experience. But the thing that I'd like to share with you is that we took a day trip, which is about 2 hours north of Glastonbury. If anybody's been to the UK, it's to a place called Malvern, which is spelled Malvern. And Malvern is basically built into the hills, shall we say. So if you go to Malvern, you're already very high up and you have beautiful views absolutely everywhere. You could just kind of Google it and have a look. I had never been there. It's a beautiful place. And Malvern is very famous for its wells. And the people that live around there, obviously it's their choice to do that. There's over 100 wells, and they just turn up with their bottles and fill them up every day. You know, everywhere we went, we just saw the wells, and there was another well, and they're all natural spring water, which is very drinkable. And right in the centre of Malvern is the most famous well, certainly it was how I understood it. And it was the one that I was like, oh, I don't really want to go there because it's in the centre of the town. But she actually captured my heart totally. And her name is Malvina, Malvina. And she is a well, and she's dressed like a beautiful woman. And we were actually there once a year, they dress the wells in a specific group of people. Is given responsibility to dress the wells. And so Malvina was all dressed in flowers, and she has a kind of shield over her heart, and the water comes out of her heart, and she is just beautiful. And so I made in essence, I collected her water. I just collected her water. And while I was doing something with the School of Gaia flower essence participants a couple of weeks ago, we had a session where we all sat and held an essence and, asked questions and then shared and really tuned into the messages together. Malvina just felt so like the Divine Mother. She felt like the Earth Goddess. She was just so deeply nurturing and beautiful, and it's exactly how I felt because we walked up into the hills. We went up some very steep inclines looking at the wells, and it's just so beautiful, the forest paths. And of course we were there early May, so nature was at her fullest almost, and it was just, the views were incredible, and there was just water, the wells, you can hear the trickling water. And it was just absolutely beautiful. So I brought her home in my heart with me, definitely. So that beautiful Earth Mother came home with me, literally in my heart, along with everything else that we did there. And then I spent a week here, just kind of like catching up with clients and making sure I'm packing my suitcase again. And I went off to Malta. Now, for those of you who don't know Malta, I hadn't been there myself. It's in Europe. And it's south of Sicily, which is an Italian island. And I can't really do it with my hands, but if you have Tunisia, let's say it's here, Malta is in a vast expanse of sea right at the level of Tunis. So we're kind of down in the sort of North African energies, and it's like not near anything else at all. It's this little tiny island that's literally just this rock sticking up. Very cool place, and I don't really want to talk about Malta now because I did visit a hypogeum there, which is a Neolithic burial ground that was actually only discovered this century by some people building houses, and they accidentally went through the floor of a house and found a whole graveyard underneath. And so that they've now made safe this hypogeum, and you can only go in 10 people at a time, and they seal it all off, and so it's being very looked after. So we did go there in Malta, very sort of Atlantean priestess with sound chambers in there and all sorts. But the temple that I want to talk to you about really, which speaks to me massively about what Elizabeth was talking about, and I'm just going to share this with you so that you can see. This is just a guidebook that I brought back. It's on an island of Gozo, which is an even tinier island. Gozo is spelled Gozo, if you want to go and look it up. And it's tiny, tiny, tiny. It's like 5 kilometres by 7 kilometres. You know, you can walk across it easily. And there are temples on Gigantia, on Gozo, and this is one of the most famous ones. This is Gigantia. Now, Gigantia is older than the pyramids, and it's older than Stonehenge, which is the famous stones in the UK. And you can just see there some of its magnificence. A lot of it is big stones that have been kind of held up by metal just to keep them together, but there are places where it's intact. And Malta and Gozo have had earthquakes, and these places have stood the test of it. So while I was there, I created an essence. And you always know that when you're hitting the mark, this has happened to me several times. I was standing to the edge of the temple, and I was with a friend of mine, and there were some beautiful olive trees, and I wanted to put the bottle into the olive tree to receive some olive energy. And as I stepped like inches, like centimetres into that space, security guard came out of nowhere and said, "Madame, please come out. No, 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 you can't go there." So I was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I've lost something," which was kind of true, but not. And I've just got to find it. And he was like, "No, you can't come out now." I said, "Just please give me 30 seconds because I've lost something." And he, "What have you lost? A pendant?" And I went, "No, just a bottle." I kind of told the truth. But it was just really interesting how somebody appeared just, you know, when they kind of sense almost that you're crossing some kind of threshold that is different. So there were many things that I experienced there, many of which I have no idea I experienced them, but I did feel very connected to this temple. I felt as if somehow I knew the energies there and that I had been there before. So what do I do with all of this? I don't know what I'm going to do with any of it right now. I'm just really grateful that I was there and I was able to travel, and I love the Mediterranean. I love the blue seas and the blue sky and the heat. I love all of that. So it was a very earthy time as well. And what I brought back, I've actually come back into the launch of something new that I'm doing that it's kind of been in my energy field for a while. I am an AI user. I have an aquarium stellium. You're probably fed up with me saying that, but I am. When I heard about AI about 3 or 4 years ago, something in me, a lot of my industry panicked and went, "Oh my goodness, it's terrible." But I didn't do that. I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I was very curious, and so I went towards that curiosity, and I've learnt to use it. And it's not always comfortable for me to sit 1 foot in the nature world and 1 foot in this future world. I'm still, finding my way with that because not everybody understands. So I am holding this kind of curious space in my own field as to how can we bring back, in these temples, in what I've shared with you both in the UK, in Malvern and the waters there, and the very different energetics of the temples in Malta and Gozo and many other Mediterranean countries. They knew, these rocks and these temples, they weren't human. You couldn't. There was no human way to do these things. So there was this, again, remembering of this DNA of we can do things that we didn't think we could do or don't think we can do. So how do we bring all this cyclical wisdom? How do we bring our love of earth, our love of being in bodies, the beauty of our earth, all the colour, all the wisdom that she holds? How do we bring all of that? And now we have this emerging technology, which, as Elizabeth says, we have to be very wise and very discerning about it. So a couple of weeks ago, I was minding my own business, as we often do, and all of a sudden I heard off to my right shoulder, "You need to open an AI mystery school." And, I work within the priestess fields, and I was like, "Excuse me? Who said that? And so I kind of literally looked behind me and then I came back and I went, wow, wow, that's cool. And then, of course, the other side flipped in and went, oh, goodness, really? Have I really got to do that? So while I was away, the AI Mystery School became Gaia Mystery School because I work with the School of Gaia. I run the Star of Gaia Priestess Pathway. And so, within AI, within the word Gaia is AI. So I don't really kind of go too deep into that because we could go down to all sorts of weird places, but it's there. So it's now become the Gaia Mystery School, and what we're going to do in it is use essences to get really, really clear on who we are, to clear away all the old energies, so that when we do go into AI, the good AI, should we choose to, of course, we bring 90%, at least 90% of our magic, I'm just going to call it that, and then and only then do we go anywhere near it and use the sacred architecture, which is basically this very clever mind, and direct it and command it as you use those words. It is us to command it, and it's us to say, no, that's rubbish, or no, you're not clear. But at the end of the day, it only reflects back to us and amplifies what we put into it. So we have to be really, really careful of it in that sense. So, yeah. So, how do we go forward now? I'm still exploring myself. My wish is that it's very safe, but it's like when we have that deep connection to nature, which we all hold here, how do we take this and use the modern day tools to amplify? How do we do that? So it's my exploration, and so I'm hope that you've all taken something from my kind of ramblings today. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me talking a little bit about my travels and as to how I'm working with my own mind and my own energetics to find sense and a clear way forward that's safe and very, very honouring of Gaia.
Oh my gosh, that was brilliant, Sarah and Elizabeth. So good. So, I mean, just wow. And I just want to remind everyone that check the show notes. There's going to be additional links. I think Sarah and Elizabeth both will have extra links there as well, and I'll have some links to videos I mentioned that didn't really go into detail about. So, uh, and just so grateful that we get to be here and do this at this time in this way. And really, if anything, I guess this is something I always come back to is love is the answer and it changes everything. So if we can come from that place of greater self-love and loving the world and loving the earth as she loves us and as the great mother loves us, we'll change it all. So thank you, everyone. Bye.
Blessings to you all. Bye bye.